Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tangle Time Arts. My name is Nana Heron, and I'm a certified Zentangle teacher. And I'm super excited to be here today to do the demo for our second mosaic from the Fragment of Your Imagination challenge from January. I'm so sorry this is late, but better late than never. And since I'm going to actually be keeping pretty true to Mosaic 1. Many of you may have already worked ahead and completed this second mosaic because it'll be very similar because I want to be able to mix and match the tiles from Mosaic 1 and Mosaic 2. They're separate projects, but they're also one big project, and you can put them together. Okay, so for this project, we need the same materials that we had from the Mosaic 1 demo. We need our black pen, and I also have a graphic 1, which is a little wider in case we need to fill in larger areas. I have a Micron 05 in red as well for some accents. I have our awesome number 2 pencil, a couple of different tortillons, just depending on which one is more comfortable for me. I have a ruler. I have colored pencils. And of course, I'm going to move all this out of the way now. Of course, we have our tiles 5 through 8, and I've already taped them together because that can take some time. But you want to make sure that the tape is on there really well. And I just use washi tape, but you could use the blue painter's tape as well, because you'll want to be able to remove it. And I made sure that the tiles were in order. Remember, we had numbered them. So I have 5, 6, 7, and 8, just like when we originally numbered them. And this is awesome because we already have all of our information on there. And I'm going to flip it over now. So this is what we have for our second mosaic. And I just want to take a moment to send out a big thank you to everyone involved in the Fragment of Your Imagination challenge. It's a really big undertaking, and I've really enjoyed it, actually. So I'm excited to finish this up. So once yours is taped together, what I like to do, and I think I mentioned this in the first video, is that I like to make a photocopy. So I made photocopies. I do multiples of them, and you can also copy this onto cardstock, like a white cardstock. And what's awesome about that is then you can try different colors, and they make really good gifts. All right, so once you've got your tape on and your copies made, and we're back here, and we're just going to dive in, and maybe you've already kind of started that. But one of the things we did was to aura on the inside of this large square, and that's probably the easiest thing to start with. So you can do them individually, tile by tile, or I just like to work big and go ahead as if this were one big tile, like a massive tile, almost like an opus tile, but not as big as that. So I'm doing the aura on the inside here. You can use a ruler if you want to, but it's not really necessary. So we have that. And another thing you'll want to do is you'll want to measure on the outside. If you're going to do the raise like we did last time, which I am going to do, we need to measure around the outside. And I did some of them already just to save time. With the second video, because there's a lot of repeat, there will be some stop and go where I demonstrate an area on one tile, and then I'll turn the camera off and we can all finish our other tiles and I'll come back. But for this, you want to mark all the way around, and you want to do the same as we did last time. So because these are 3.5 inches, you want to cut it in half. So we have 1 3/4. You're just going to make a mark with your pencil. And then you want to make a mark at 7/8 and also 7/8 from the other side. And you're going to do that all the way around. So I'll finish up this tile. So cut it in half. And that's the half is 1 3/4. And then 7/8. And then also 7/8 from the other side. So go ahead and take some time to do that all the way around. And take your time because measuring should be, that's the only thing that we're really precise on for Mosaic 1 and Mosaic 2. All right, so we've got our measurements in. And then I'm going to switch back to my black pen. Another thing that we did was to aura around our seed elements. And to keep it consistent, I'm going to do the same thing. So I am going to just pick one and aura along the flat part here, and also aura around the seed. I can zoom in on that. Sure, I'm in view there. So just taking your time to aura around each seed element, just like we did before. But there is going to be a little bit of a difference, so I'm not going to ink them in right away. You can if you would like, but I am going to do something just a little bit different because while I want Mosaic 1 and 2 to be similar, I personally don't want them to be twins. They're more like sisters. And that's because Mosaics 1 and 2 each feature different fragments with different tangles in them. So you can jump around and fill in these auras. and it goes pretty quickly. And we're already on our last section here. Rotate as needed. I do like to rotate a lot just because it's a lot easier and more comfortable. Once we have those in, what I'm going to do actually, instead of inking in these areas, I just want to fill in an orb. So I'm just going to pick one here and put in one nice big orb. And I'm going to do that for each of those spaces. And I'll just fill those in all the way around because that goes pretty quickly. Some are going to be bigger and some are going to be smaller, so don't worry about that. Oh, I got a really big one here. Isn't that fun? All right, made it all the way around. And this is the part where I'm going to start doing some inking. So pick any tile to start with in any one of these areas and just start inking that in outside of the orb areas, but inside of they're kind of like triangles, right? And this is where you may want to use a wider pen if you have one. And when you have a little squiggle like I had there, you can just smooth that out. No worries. You can also work a little bit on the rounding of your orbs sometimes to make them, correct any little wobbliness. Moving on over here to finish up. This is one tile of the 4, so I'll do one, and then we can take some time and work on the other areas. And if you didn't want orbs in there, of course, you could just ink it in or leave it blank or put in a different tangle. So I have one finished. And what I'm going to do is you have the option of either shading that in as an orb or let me check the focus there. Okay. You can leave that as orbs and shade them in as orbs, or you can do something a little different. And what I'm going to do is put a little, like a backwards print on there. So I'm just going to go in and add a little bit of a spiral in there. And that is optional. And then on the flip side, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to spiral in the opposite way. It works really well with this particular tile, but it's going to look really cool for all of them. So that's this step. And I want to do that for all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off and work on that. So you can, oops, I missed one here. How did I miss one? There we go. So you can fill in these areas as you wish, and I'm going to meet you back here in a couple of minutes. All right. And in the comments, if you want to tell me what you did, that would be awesome too, because I'm curious. Okay, I'll see you soon. All right, now that we have finished filling in these kind of triangle areas around our seed shapes and either inking them in completely or putting in an orb and filling it with something like printa, like a spiral, we can move on to our next step. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole a larger tile, and this is what it looks like. It's pretty cool. So it's not as maybe heavy or dark as our previous one, but I think that's a good thing because with the second mosaic, there's already a lot of drama elements. So if you compare the two, um, mosaic number two already has a lot of drama to it. All right, so keeping consistent with our Mosaic 1 project, our next step is a border around our entire mosaic. And this is optional. You don't have to have a border if you don't want to. But I did on the first one, so I'm going to, again, um, try to stay consistent, and I'm going to go in with a border. And I am going to stick with Dragonair by Norma Burnell, CZT, um, just because I want to be able to mix and match them. And I feel using the same border keeps it more consistent. But that being said, again, you can branch off on your own and choose any border that you would like to experiment with or no border. That's entirely your creativity and your decision. All right, so for a reminder, Dragonair, and I'll do one tile and then I will be back later with the entire thing done. And again, in the comments, you can let me know what kind of a border you used because I'm curious. And thank you to those of you who shared your comments for the first mosaic. That was really interesting, really fascinating. So much creativity out there. All right, Dragonair. If you'll recall, and I'm going to zoom in again so you can see. Dragonair is starting with, it's like fescue, right? And it's just this little curve with a little bulb on the end, and we ink it in. And we're going to do that all the way to the left there. And these are probably spaced, I would say like a centimeter or a quarter, roughly a quarter inch. So we're just going to put those in. Oops. Fit one. This one's going to be pretty straight, so I can just fit it in there. And you want to make sure to leave a little space here because I am going to aura around it. So once we have our little fescue shapes in there, we are just going to put in, I kind of think of it as like an S shape. So I kind of, I'm starting at the end here and I've rotated my tile. I kind of go around the bulb a little bit and then come out and back in, and that's like an S shape. And we're just going to do that for each pair. Just like that. And then we're going to do the mirror image of it, the flip of it. And we're going to come in here, curving the opposite way. And then we've got the same S shape, but going the opposite way. So everything's kind of the reverse. Now you might be using a different border tangle that just goes the same way all the way around. And that's perfectly fine. So I've got something that looks like that with my Dragonair, and I am going to do that all the way around my large tile, my mosaic here. And I will be right back. And this gives you time to fill in your border tangle as well. I'll see you soon. All right, I'm back and I finished my Dragonair. I'm going to zoom out. So I've got Dragonair all the way around it. And at this point, the next step is super easy. I am just going to aura all the way around it. So you can start wherever you would like with any tile that you would like. And we're just putting an aura around the entire border. And again, this is optional. You might have chosen a border that doesn't need an aura around it, an additional aura around it. So use your best judgment as far as whether you think you need an aura around the entire mosaic here, but I do need one. So I am just taking the time to work my way around and put that in. It goes pretty quickly, so no worries about that. I love putting auras in because I really don't have to think about it because you're just following along your previous ink work. So it's just a matter of keeping consistent and working your way around. And we are already on our last one. All right, how about that? We're already all the way around. Something I like to add, and again, to keep it consistent with my other one, is I'm going to add a little heart in these areas. I'm just going to tuck it in there, and we can get one in each tile. And this is where I'm actually going to use my red micron and just ink them in. And I'm just going to do it now so I don't forget. But it's our first little pop of color. You can do it at the end if you would prefer, but I'm just going to do it now so that I don't forget because it's a little detail, but it adds a lot. All right, so we are all the way around. And now I'm going to take my black pen again, and before we do any shading, I am going to add those rays that come out like we did before. So you'll need your ruler or a straight edge for this. And I'm going to zoom out so we can see better. I like to start with the center one that bisects it. So I'm starting from the center point and going out to the corner point. And that's always how I like to do these. And a good check is to see if it's matching up with the corner, the little corner of the square on the inside. And before I do this, I just want to mention that I did not aura around my circles, but some of you might like to do that. And this would be a good time to do it if you are going to do it. All right, here we go. Putting in our lines, our rays, and that's one. Then I go for the one that's the half. And this is just the way I do it. You can do your own order of things, but this is what works for me. And then I do the quarters. Being careful to lift up your pen and not run right through the areas that you've already inked. Does require some focus. So we have that side done. I'm going to do this side. Again, I'm going to go for the half. And you'll want to, let me grab a tissue here because you will want to occasionally wipe off your ruler because as you can see, there is some ink on it. Unless you are working with a ruler that has cork on the back, then you won't have this problem. But I am just using a regular ruler today. So ink transfer might be an issue. So just be careful with that. It's not the end of the world, but we try to avoid that if we can. And then the last quarter. All right, off my ruler. So I have one done, and I'll just keep the camera rolling, and I'm going to mark the corner here and finish this out. So really take your time with this. I feel that it does require focus. Don't rush. So this was nice. We hit that corner right there and went straight through. I'm going to my half. And I think I missed an area. I did. So we'll just go back in that little area right there. And I missed an area here. No worries. We're all good. And yes, sometimes I don't work in order. It's just how I am sometimes. But it all gets done in the end. Our second one, I'm gonna wipe off my ruler. Moving on to my next one. I'm gonna mark that in the corner there. Thank you for spending time with me to do our second mosaic. I know these are a bigger time commitment than our usual weekly projects. But you can also always pause or stop and come back later. So there is that. That's the beauty of this format. And just one more. And I always feel like this is the most difficult part, the measuring and putting these rays in. And there we have them all in. I just want to check and make sure I've got all of them, and it looks like I do. Yay! What a relief. I'm going to clean up my ruler and then set that aside. And I always take the time to clean it in the moment because otherwise it's easy to forget. Set that aside. And now I'm going to put the cap on my black pen and I'm going to pick up my number 2 pencil and we're going to do some shading. We have done some shading already. And sometimes we need to go back in and do some more shading or reshading. But specifically what I would like to shade is the dragon air and add some graphite outside. Looking at my piece, it looks like I do have enough shading already on there. So the first place that I'm going to shade a little bit is just in here, just a little bit in the center, just a tiny bit, not a lot. Then I'm going to add some shading inside here. And shading, feel free to explore on your own because there's many different ways to shade, many different ways. You can add as much or as little as you want. Okay, so I've got some shading in there. And then I am going to add shading in each of these areas here in my dragon air, just like we did before if you use dragon air. I think I'm going to do all those same curves first. It's just easier with the angle of the pencil and everything. So I'm just going to go through and do all of those. And just a reminder, um, to when you're shading, you don't want to start too dark because you can always go back and add more. What we can't really do, even though the tortillon blends it out, um, if you get too much on there, we can't really eliminate it. So I'm just working in these areas now. All right, I think I made it all the way around. You can, if you would like, add a little bit of shading in each of these areas. That's optional, or if you did not add the little swirls in there, you can shade it like an orb. So that is up to you. And a piece like this, if you're worried about smudges, you can lay a sheet of white paper over it so that you don't smudge the area where uh, by putting your hand on it. All right, I am going to add shading around each of our original lines there. And I am also going to add shading outside of the entire work here. Well, this takes a little bit of time, but it is necessary, I think. All right. And once we have our graphite on there, then take your favorite tortillon and we are just going to blend that out. So starting on I like to start from the center and work my way out. You might want to start from the outside and work your way in. That is, again, up to you. You will develop your own style. And there's no right or wrong way, but I am more of a start from the center and work your way out type of person. And I had a little bit of shading in there, so I'm just going to go over those really quickly. And once we have that done, then we can go to our Dragonair. And again, I get these kind of center parts first. The overlapping parts, I guess. And you don't need a lot of effort there. It's just a couple of back and forth motions and you're done. Goes really quickly. And then we are going to do the shading that was on the inside here. Let's blend that all out really nicely. Sure, I've got these little valleys done. Okay. And then I think what we have left is the outer area. And I went with really light shading. If you, for example, if you're not coloring, if you're not going to be coloring, you could go with darker shading. Ooh, I think I forgot this one. Hold on. Not sure how that happened, but I'm going back in the moment and just shading that in, making sure. Yeah, I got the rest of them. I don't know. I was having too much fun talking to you. All right, I think I've made it all the way around. I'm just going to rotate it to make sure I've got all my shading in. And I think I do have it all set. At this point, you can go back in and reshade some of the other areas if you'd like to. And what I would suggest and what I'm going to do is I am going to make some photocopies of this or take some photos so that you could go back in and color them differently or make photocopies on cardstock so that you can color them differently for different people. And I think, as I mentioned before, it makes a really nice gift. You can frame it. But those are not, those would be just on one sheet of paper, all connected, instead of this, where we're going to be able to take the tape off and have interchangeable parts. So I'm going to pause it. I'm going to make some copies, and then I'll be back to add color. And I'm excited about color because I'm not using the same colors. Um, all right, I'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, so hopefully you made some copies or took a photo or scanned your image so that you can um, redo this without all of the work, just the coloring work. So what I'm going to do is I just have a basic set of Crayola pencils, and I'm going to color with different colors from what I used before. I could use the same colors, that's true, or I could go in with my black pen and add some tangles to the rays. I'll leave that to you to decide. But what I did, because I wasn't sure which colors I wanted to use, is that on one of my uh, copies, my beforehand copies, I went ahead and I added some color, just some practice color. So you can see that in some areas I didn't even add a border tangle. I just went in with a heavier pen, and I actually left these blank, these empty. So that's, one option that I played around with. But I also played around with colors. So the first thing that I did was put in my original colors, which was the blue and the yellow from Mosaic 1. And then I tried different combinations. I just kind of played around with, and the combinations are, of course, endless. But I think I'm going to go with the green and the orange. I'm kind of course, thinking of spring, and I hear a lot of spring birds out there chirping today. So I'm going to go with something spring-like. But you can play around with that like I did. And one thing I was thinking about is that actually you could do each tile differently. Um, but because the first mosaic, I only had two colors, I'm going to stick with this same type of theme and only use two colors. But I kind of like this with them all different. And if I were to have a do-over, I might do something like this. All right, so with my Crayolas, I'm going to set this aside for a minute so I don't get any stray marks on it. So I'm going to have a couple of shades of green. I've got the yellow, green, and green. I do have my white just in case I want to do some, just tone it down a little bit. I have yellow and orange. And then I do have a red orange. And on standby, I do have a red, just in case I wanted to add a little more pop of color. I'm not sure. So we'll just get started and see what we would like to do. So I am going to pick a tile again. And I'm just gonna go in with my orange. So whereas before we had yellow, blue, all the way around, I'm going to go with orange, green. So the first thing I want to do is kind of block out my color. So I'm just lightly going in with my orange, just very lightly. And then I'm continuing on up here so that I'm making sure that I get the colors right. This would be green. So then my next one's going to be the orange. So I'm really just blocking in my color. Now we have green, and then we would have orange here. So because I'm going really lightly, if I make a mistake, it's not going to show that much. This one's going to be green, and then we have an orange. And I'm just going to do that all the way around. I'll do another one here. And it is pretty tight down here, so be careful in that area. It is just a small area. So I'm just going to block this all in. With my orange so that I know whatever's not orange is going to actually be green. So let's get that going all the way around. And this step does require a lot of concentration just to get the color in the right place. And we'll just finish this one. Again, I'm just going in lightly. I'll zoom in so you can see a little better. Oops, sorry. And once you get this in, and then you can relax a little bit because you know where the orange is going, and where there's not orange, it's going to be green or whatever colors you're using. All right, so I've blocked in all the orange, and I'm going to go back to the tile that I started on before. I'm just going to go in with a little pressure and add, especially towards the point, I want some pressure in there. And then a little lighter as we go out. I don't want it so dark towards the edges. And out here, same thing. Not too Not too heavy-handed, just kind of a light, maybe a medium pressure and with some scumbling here. Just these little circular motions. I'm going to go back in to the center. Just going to finish these with the heavy pressure. So towards the center, we want the heavy pressure. And then less pressure as we go out. And the same out here, it's less pressure, but I'm using the little circular motions because it is orange and I don't want it to be streaky. Some colors blend better than others, and I feel with Crayola I have to add a little more pressure than I would with, say, Prismacolor. Prismacolor is softer. But for these projects, I like to use materials that are accessible to everyone. And Crayola can be found quite easily. Well, hopefully quite easily. Okay. So I'm just going to do this first tile, and then I'll turn it off and we can finish our tiles and meet back here. So I did that with the orange. And then I'm going to go back in. I don't know really that we need to add anything, but I do have the red orange out. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that here to the point. Just a tiny bit. I don't want it to be like overpowering. And then I'm going to take my yellow, and this is where the fun comes in because I'm just coloring over. I'm just going over everything that had a layer of orange and red orange. And you'll find that the more layers you add, the more colors you add, the more layers you add, the more saturated it looks. So you've got that variation from a lighter orange to a darker orange. And out here, I'm just adding the yellow. I'm going to rotate this way so that's more comfortable for me. Skip over here to the smaller one and finish that. So I've got that going on with my orange. I'm going to zoom out and yes, I am dealing with some sun issues here. So I'll try to make that a little better for you. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in all of the orange, and then I will be back and we'll do our greens. See you shortly. All right, so now that I have the orange all in, with a little bit of the red orange in the center and covered by yellow, I am going to go ahead and add, I am still going to go with the green, but it is tempting to go with the violet. It's just a matter of preference. Let me know what colors you chose because that it's always interesting for me to know what kind of colors people are into these days, and especially seasonally. But I am going to stick with my original thinking of the green, and I am going to just start with my lighter green to block it in, like we did with the orange. And I did take a photo because some of you might decide you only want one color. You might not want to add a second color, and that's perfectly fine too. Maybe you just want something like this, maybe not orange, but maybe a different color. And maybe you want to start adding colors like to the Dragonair or within your other tangles and fragments. And that's totally fine. But I am going to go with the green. So I'm just going to block it in like we did before, just a very light layer. Um, and I'll just work on one tile here. And this is much easier because we already did the hard work of deciding which areas get the orange. So I'm just putting in some of the green very lightly. I just kind of like to have like a base color when I work on these projects. Because we've put in so much effort with this already. So I just like to make sure I am getting the right areas. Might have been fun to go with like a red too instead of a green, but here we are with our green. And then I'm going to go in darker like we did with our orange. Let's go in darker. I've got more pressure towards that center again, and then I go from a heavy pressure here to a medium pressure moving out. So this is a medium pressure here. And I'm just layering until I get the shade of green that I'm looking for. Got a medium pressure out here. It's kind of a small space. And a medium pressure here. And again, I'm using the little circular motions to make sure the area is covered. I don't want any streakiness or empty spots. This is actually a larger area here. Okay, let me take a look and see color-wise. Yeah, that's about it. I could go a little darker. It just depends on how much of a contrast I want with that orange, but I could go a little darker. But I still am going to burnish it with the yellow, so um, the yellow colored pencil is getting a workout today. All right, once you feel that you have enough layers of the green on there to get it to the color that you're interested in, I am going to add a little bit of so that was the yellow green we were working with. So I am going to add a little bit of the green towards the center here. Just like that. It's a very pretty green. The combination just forms this really pretty green. And then once I have that, maybe a little bit peeks out here. Then I'm going to take my yellow and burnish with that. And again, I apologize for the sun peeking through. This video is taking a little longer to film, so the sun, at least it's sunny, but the sun is moving and it just hits my desk at just the right angle, right when we're finishing up here. And then I'm going to burnish out here as well. If you're tired of yellow, you could go over this with white. So you're going to get more of a muted color, maybe more minty. Mine has much more of a spring green look to it at this point. But that's kind of what I want with it being March and spring is in the air. All right, so I have that filled in with the greens, and I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the tile, our large tile. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of that with my greens. And you can work with whatever colors you would like to work with, and I'll meet you back here in just a couple of minutes. All right, I'm back and I moved everything over, so hopefully the sun won't be so much of a problem. I finished coloring with my greens and yellow, and this is the result. And if I decide that I'd like it to go a little darker, I always can do that. So this is my finished mosaic. At this point, I could go back in and add a little more shading if I feel that some areas got lightened, or I just want to add more, or I could add color or gel pen. For example, some glittery gel pen might be kind of cool, like right in here, maybe gold even. Could do that area. And in here where we did the aura around our seed shape and also around our larger square there. So you can decide what you would like to do with that. For me, I'm going to consider it done. And I am going to take a pen and tuck my initials onto one of these tiles, just to make it my own. I'm just trying to decide where I would like to do that though, because there's a lot going on here. And I think actually I am just gonna tuck it into the Dragonair here. Let me pick one. And I'm just gonna put my initials in there. It's gonna kind of tuck it in there. So I'm only putting it on one tile, but it's one tile that's part of to me this is almost like a large tile. It's our one project, it's um one mosaic of two. And I'm going to slide the original, our first mosaic over here. So I'm going to put this one over here. And then I'm going to put the second one. It's not stuck to the paper. Hold on. Okay. Oh, the tape is stuck. Hold on 1 second. The tape wants to come off. So give me just 1 second to get that over here. All right, I put it all back together so we can look at both together. So we have our first mosaic and our second mosaic, and we are going to take the tape off and then we can mix and match them. So I'm actually going to take a photo of them together, and you can too. And then we're going to take the tape off. All right, so let's do this in order. So yeah, the tape is just kind of dried out on that one and did not want to transfer over. That's okay. All right, got the tape off of this one. And then now we have to do this one. This one's a little stickier because it's newer. Okay, once we've got our tape off, we can still put them in their original orders here. So you can either frame them as each their own set. So you'd have two frames. You can put them together like this, or you can start to mix and match. So if I take this one out and this one out and just flip them over like that, and this, I mean, there's an endless way of putting them together. And then we can rotate this so that we're doing every other. So you can have something different like this. You can mix them all around different combinations, but they do generally match up pretty well. So if you have them in a frame, you can even, if you have like photo corners, for example, if you put them in that way, you can mix them up depending on the season or your mood, and you can move them around and just have different configurations. So this is a really cool project. I'm not going to add any more color or gel pen or sparkle or glitter or anything like that. I am happy with them the way they are. If you did add something, I'd love to hear about it. I always love to hear what everyone does. And if you enjoyed this whole series, I hope you'll subscribe and join me for more fun projects. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. And again, my apologies for taking so long to finish the second mosaic. But it was definitely a fun thing to do. All right, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll be back for our weekly tangle. And yeah, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. I love you guys. Take care. See you soon.